Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. On this episode, we've got a Bears victory over the Green Bay Packers. Woo-woo! It made my Thanksgiving. And we've got Blackhawks taking 8 out of 12 possible points on their Circus trip. And the Bulls still trying to struggle to figure out what their identity is. All this and more on this episode of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. You're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs? They are the AHL team of the Chicago Blackhawks, basically the minor league team of the Chicago Blackhawks. So, the ticket price is starting at just $7. Family fun that's affordable for the whole family. Located just 90 minutes from the city, you get to see the future stars of the Blackhawks today. Next home game is December 11th versus Iowa. And coming fresh off of a win versus the Chicago Wolves, come check out your Ice Hogs at icehogs.com. All right, well, we're going to talk about the Big Bears win because I honestly, in the cerebral part of my brain, felt that the Bears could beat the Packers, but my heart and all of my emotions didn't think that was possible. So we're going to talk about the Bears first, then we're going to break into the Blackhawks, and finally we're going to wrap it up with the Bulls. Again, we're going to not talk too much about baseball because it's still early in the off season. There's been a couple minor signings here and there, but we're going to focus on the three teams that are currently mid-season. So let's talk about this big win by the Bears. Now, we all thought after that first game that the Bears played much better and that suddenly it didn't seem like the Green Bay Packers were this formidable foe that couldn't be beaten by us. We beat them. And we didn't just beat them. We beat them in Green Bay. And we didn't just beat them in Green Bay. We beat them with Aaron Rodgers driving down the field to score the game-winning touchdown. And we stopped him on 4 straight downs. That's what we did. On Brett Favre night. Brett Favre night. Favre night. That's incredible. And there's so many good things to talk about. I'm just going to jump right in. I've got some notes here. Like I said, this was Brett Favre night where they were retiring his number prior to him going into the Hall of Fame and putting him in their Ring of Honor with his number and name up on the side of the stadium and the unveiling. And Bart Starr was healthy enough to come out even though he's half dead at this point. Bart Starr came out. And a night like this, it's basically, you have to consider it like in the college football where they pick a homecoming game and they try to pick it against a team that they should beat because you always want to win your homecoming game. And the Packers picked a Thanksgiving night game, prime time, against the Bears to host the Brett Favre retirement party thing. And that's sort of disrespectful because they basically said, you know what, who of the 8 teams we play at home, who is going to be the one we guarantee we're going to win, and on a big night? People watch football on Thanksgiving because most people don't have to work the next day. And you have people staying up to watch the games. And apparently this was the highest rated Thursday night game in a long time. This was just absolutely monstrous numbers. And to see the Brett Favre retirement get spoiled was fantastic. That's what you get for disrespecting the Bears. So let's talk about some of the key plays in the game. A lot of penalties by the Bears. That was not good. But I want to focus on big plays. Big plays that there was on the second drive of the game. You had Pernell McPhee was offsides, and that was a big penalty on the Bears. You had a big drop by Davante Adams for a touchdown. I mean, usually when we see the Green Bay Packers, they are absolutely flawless in their execution, and anything that can go right goes right their way. Ball tipped up in the air, their guy catches it. Brett Favre is getting sacked and is falling down, throws up a Hail Mary, and gets caught for a touchdown. This one, it didn't go their way, and it wasn't like things went bad for them. It's just that it was a standard game. So you had Davante Adams drop a touchdown pass. Then in the third drive of the series, you had Tracy Porter, and he gets an interception, which is negated from the most petty illegal contact I've ever seen, which was so ridiculous. And another big play was the 25-yard Eddie Lacy screen pass for a touchdown. And in that one, I thought Shea played a good game. I thought Shea's been playing much better lately, but he whiffed on a tackle, and that gave up the touchdown. And then you had Mark Mariani at the end of the first half. He fought for that first down. So the Bears threw an underneath pass, and he fought to pick up the extra 2-3 yards that he needed to get that first down. And you end up with the Bears scoring a touchdown on that drive to Zach Miller, and that was set up by that Mark Mariani extra oomph. So anything I've said about Mark Mariani and his a lack of ability anymore to be a kickoff and punt return man, he more than made up for is playing in the slot receiver and getting that big yards. And on that same drive, you had Cutler dodging a sack and throwing a touchdown pass to Zach Miller for wide open. And that's been something that the Packers have struggled with all season long, is covering the tight end. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what in their scheme, but tight ends are going wide open. And I don't know if it's because they bring so much pressure with blitz packages and bringing in their linebackers and their cornerbacks that's how the field opens up. But whatever it is that, I mean, I haven't watched enough Packer games that closely to really see what the cause is, but they've had issues covering tight ends, and it sucked on a night that we didn't have Martellus Bennett, but we did have Zach Miller, which was more than enough. So let's just go through and talk about the good and the bad. Offense-wise, the offense played great. I mean, the way the Packers were playing, you don't have Kevin White. He's pretty sure he's going to be gone for the rest of the season. You don't have Eddie Royal. You don't have Martellus Bennett, and you've got Matt Forte, but he's not Matt Forte regular. He's still hobbling along on a sore knee. And what the Packers are doing is they're putting an 8-man box there because they know that the Bears' offense is predicated on the run. Everything is set up through the run, and the Bears have to establish some running game in order to get their offense going. And they brought 8 men in the box, and then because the Bears were throwing all these underneath passes, basically you had your slot corner was already, with these short passes, was already staying right there because he doesn't have to run out. So that almost makes it like a 9-man front because you have your safety up. So you have your normal 7-man front, but you get the safety coming up to form an 8-man box. And then you've got your slot receiver who's already that close to the field, and he's not having to run out far because it's all underneath passes. And he's right there, basically leaving a 9th man in the box. It's really, really hard to run against an 8-man box in the NFL. And you add a 9th man in the box, it's a recipe for disaster if you're the Bears. And the first half was it was a lot of Bears trying to establish the run and not really getting anything anywhere. You had Matt Forte, who was just coming back from several games off from an injury, and he didn't look like himself. He wasn't hitting the hole hard. And you had Jeremy Langford, who looked much better in this game, running the ball wise. Pass catching Langford, who's been pretty good all season, but he seems to when the light is shining the brightest, he seems to make big drops, which is sad for him because I think as a whole he's a pretty good pass catcher. What else? I guess the part of the reason is Matt Forte is a lot more patient when he's trying to pick the hole. And in this, when you've got a big 9-man front like that, is you've got to basically, if you see anything, you've just got to charge through it and with a head of steam and go. And that's more of Jeremy Langford's style. Is Forte's a little more patient in the box when he's he's trying to see a hole and see a gap and get through it. And that's why you'll see a lot of times he gets stopped for 0 yards or a loss of 1. And Langford's not going to get those. He's going to get, at least a yard or 2 because he's just hitting that hole with a head of steam. That's the, big difference between their two running styles. But Langford was clearly the much better runner in this game. And then you had Adam Gase. He saw that they weren't getting anywhere with the run, and he changed up their system a little bit, and he tried to do a lot more bubble screens and tight end screens and things like that, and short passes to use the short pass to set up the offense, and it worked. It was you saw them be able to start to move the ball much better later in the game. The wide receivers, I thought the wide receivers played fine. Marquise Wilson had some good catches. Alshon Jeffrey played well. Tight ends played well. But the offensive line showed a little bit that they're still a patchwork offensive line. You had some killer pre-snap penalties. You had Hronis Grasu get bowled over a couple of times. You had them not being able to pick up the blitz as well as they should. There was some plays where just the blitzers came in free, and I don't know if it's because they don't. Dom Capers, the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, it's because he sends some exotic blitzes, and he blitzes so often, but Jay Cutler was under fire for a lot of the first half. And switching up the offensive game plan gave him a little bit more time, let him roll out of the pocket a little bit. You saw Jay Cutler, dodge some would-be sacks and would-be tackles and be able to make some big plays like the touchdown in the first half. You saw him slip a sack and be able to step up into the pocket or outside the pocket and throw for the touchdown. This first offensive series in the second half, you were expecting with some of the momentum that the Bears had, scoring late, keeping up with the Packers, getting the ball to start the second half, that they would come out ready to play. And it started well. They had a nice first down pass to Alshon Jeffrey on the first play, and then they got all the way to the 45, and that's just when the penalty started. You got a hold on Kyle Long. You got an offside. Alshon Jeffrey lined up offsides. I don't know how that happens. You can go back and watch it. He lined up not even on the neutral zone. He lined up completely offsides. If you're the wide receiver, you should never be offsides, and you should never have a false start. You just look down the line, and when the ball moves, you go. So you get the offsides on Alshon Jeffrey. You hit a screen pass, but then on the screen pass, you get the worst tripping call ever on Matt Slauson, and that negated it was after the screen pass, and that negated a 17-yard pass to Alshon Jeffrey, and that set up a 3rd and 11, and then you get the cornerback blitz into an empty backfield. So it's basically, when you're 3rd and 11, it takes a couple seconds to be able to set up a play to get you 11 yards, unless it's a screen pass. But the Bears set up an actual offense, and Dom Capers sent a cornerback blitz and came in free, sacked Cutler, ended up with a 4th and 22, which pretty much ruined any sort of good drive you had. It drove you back 12 yards. So instead of being on the 45-yard line, you're back in your own 33. Yeah, and that, I guess that's it for the main thing I wanted to talk about on the offense is Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler played exceptional. He made the right throws. Any of the throws that were incomplete, he was throwing them in places that only his guy could get them. And it was either his guy was going to get them or they was going to be incomplete. So he was throwing on underneath ones. He was throwing low. When the guy, the defensive back was underneath, he was throwing high. Sometimes it looks like he's got bad throws, but really he is throwing it to where only his guy can get it. And that's great, especially when you consider you have Alshon Jeffrey, who's a big receiver, and you have smaller cornerbacks on him, is he's going to go and throw it high and let his guy go up and get it, because if he doesn't catch it, it's going to harmlessly out of bounds, or Alshon's just going to tip it to the ground. And so no turnovers, and this is a career that's marred by bad turnovers against Green Bay, especially in Green Bay. If you want to look at Jay Cutler's career numbers, I mean, he averages like 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions a game at Lambeau Field. Against the Packers. One touchdown and 4 interceptions. 3 interceptions. 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions against the Green Bay Packers, and that's not getting it done. And he goes in there and no turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbled the ball, and made a lot of really good throws where he needed to make them. And he looked like the better quarterback in the matchup. And, it got me thinking a little bit. I know people rag on Jay and say that Jay's not the answer. And I feel like it's finally we're seeing Jay Cutler, who's the guy that we meant to see, the guy that we've been trying to see, and the guy I've been telling everybody that he exists somewhere in there. And he finally has a system that he buys into, and he trusts the offensive coordinator, and he trusts the coaching staff. Ever since he's gotten here, it's been a carousel of coaches that have systems that have big flaws in them, or offensive coordinators he doesn't trust, or whatever it may be. Mike Martz, with these 7-step drops, was getting Jay Cutler killed. He was getting beat to a pulp, and his system was a system that no longer worked, kind of like Lovey's cover 2 defense, where it just people figure out how to work it. Then people figured out the Mike Martz offense, and Jay Cutler trying to run it, getting killed all the time, not working. Or Mike Tice, where he's just incompetent, and he didn't get along with Jay. And then you had Lovie Smith, who he was more a glorified defensive coordinator. He wasn't really a head coach. He didn't really know what was going on in the offense. He didn't partake in anything that went on over there. He just trusted his offensive coordinator. And that was not a system that Jay was meant to thrive in. And then you come in with the new weak coaching staff with Tressman and an offensive coordinator that's running to the media behind his back. You finally get an offensive coordinator who works well with him, has a system where they come up with a good game plan, and when the game plan, if it's not working, they alter the game plan mid-game, and you do some adjustments to try to move it. You're trying to get the ball out fast. You're trying to establish the run, and it's working really well for Jay. He's not having to make these crazy throws and throwing off his back foot and making anything happen that leads to either boom or bust type of response with what happens with the ball. So if he's throwing, if it's for a 3rd and 10 and he's trying to throw this on the double coverage to Brandon Marshall, that's a play where it's a high percentage of a mistake happening. Here they're setting it up so you're getting positive yards on 1st and 2nd down, and setting up a 3rd and manageable, or 3rd and short, or even getting a 1st down on 2nd down, and moving the ball and reestablishing field position and keeping Jay on his feet. That's the type of things they're doing, and it's working for Jay. So it got me thinking here is, I've always thought highly of Jay, but Jay is Jay's own worst enemy. Is when he goes rogue and he doesn't follow the offensive game plan. That's when bad things happen. And he's bought in, and he's bought in the full ante to this offensive system. So I wanted to see Jay Cutler in this system. How does he rank as among the quarterbacks of the NFL? So clearly Tom Brady's better. I wouldn't say Tyrod, the quarterbacks of the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins. No, Jay Cutler's a better quarterback. Cincinnati, I think it's a toss-up where you have the Ginger for the Bengals. I think that's a toss-up. I think he's about equivalent to what you get for Jay Cutler. Ben Roethlisberger is a more elite quarterback. Joe Flacco, no. Anybody with Cleveland? Nope. So right now you are at two quarterbacks better, one quarterback tied. Andrew Luck, better than Cutler. Anybody with Texans, Jaguars, Titans? Nah. Nope. Maybe someday with Mariota, but not right now. Denver Broncos, up to this point, you'd say Peyton Manning, oh yeah, much better. But now he's a shell of himself. So no, Peyton Manning right now is not better. Neither is Brock Osweiler because he's still young. You're just trying to figure out what you have with him. Alex Smith, no. The kid from Oakland, not yet. Phillip Rivers, I'm going to go Phillip Rivers better. So you got 3 better, 1 the same. Eli Manning, nope. Anybody that the Redskins are playing, nope. Sam Bradford, nope. Tony Romo, I'm going to say Tony Romo better. So got 4. The kid from the Vikings, nope. Aaron Rodgers, that's 5. Matt Stafford, nope. Cam Newton, we'll go Cam Newton better. So that's 6. Matt Ryan, that's 7. Buccaneers, Saints, Drew Brees better, that's 8. Carson Palmer, 9. The kid from Seattle, 10. Rams and 49ers. So you've got, if you break it up into the NFL into thirds, there's about 11 quarterbacks in each bracket, and you would say Jay Cutler is either in the top bracket or the very top one in the second bracket. That's not a bad place to be, especially when there's so many bad quarterbacks in the NFL, is you've got one that can take you to the promised land. Jay Cutler, playing under this system, has the ability to be able to do that. So let's move to special teams. Again, we have special teams gaffes that cost the Bears big. Mark Mariani missing another catch, and Deontay Thompson gets it in the end zone, and with a heads-up play, takes a knee into the end zone and gets the touchback. That was just heads-up play by Deontay Thompson, but another gaffe by Mark Mariani. At the end of the first half, to allow the Packers to go down and score a field goal, you're the Bears and you gave up a 64-yard return. And the announcers made the mistake, and they said it was Bryce Callahan that missed the tackle. But if you go back and watch it, it was actually Sherrick McManus, who has been miserable this season. Sherrick McManus hasn't been good on special teams, and he's been awful as far as the defender. That was bad news right there. And then you had, right after that, on the ensuing play, you had Deontay Thompson. He returned it almost to the 50. And that was... So other than Deontay Thompson, the Bears' special teams really struggled. In order to win a game in the NFL, especially a game on the road against a division opponent that's just absolutely dominated you over the last decade, is you need to win at least 2 of the 3 phases. And I wouldn't say the Bears won that special teams. And that's been a problem all season, is they're not good enough to win a special teams battle. The best they can do is come to a draw, where neither team has any sort of advantage. And speaking of that 50 or that return to the 50 by Deontay Thompson, is right after that, when they went to the commercial break, you have a commercial for the 2016 Summer Olympics. What the hell do they have the commercial for the 2016 Olympics for? I'm watching it. I'm like, we're just starting the winter And you're already talking about 2 seasons later. I mean, we got winter still, then we got spring, then we got the Summer Olympics. I mean, we all know the Olympics are coming. It's going to be everywhere. Why are you advertising it on Thanksgiving? Ridiculous. But real quick on that is after that kick return to the 50 is I was mentioning that you had Adam Gase, the Bears offensive coordinator, and he's switching it up a lot and trying to find things that are making it work. And the Bears offense really struggled up to that point. And he has the Bears come out and start off in the pistol offense. You know, basically the offense that made RG3, you know, what people thought he was when they thought he was really good. Now they realize he's terrible. But they came out of a pistol, and the Bears moved the ball pretty well out of there and established something new and something else that the Green Bay Packers have to go back and readjust with. And that's nice to see, is that you've got an offensive coordinator that's going and readjusting as the game goes along. Under the last 2 regimes, maybe even longer than that, is the Bears had a game plan going into the game, and if it didn't work, they stuck with that game plan the whole game and just until everything disintegrated and the wheels fell off. It was really frustrating. And now you've got coaching staff in there that says, all right, well, this isn't working. It's not working how we want it to work. I'm going to readjust things on the fly. And it's great to see that. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the Bears defense. The Bears defense, you know, with the way they've been playing, not being able to get a lot of pressure on quarterbacks, bad safety play from the strong safety spot, you just don't expect a lot against Aaron Rodgers. You figure he's going to pick them apart, and then what do? Is Tracy Porter turns into the, you know, like Darrelle Revis. I mean, he's out there on Porter Island. It was absolutely ridiculous out there. I think they said he had 4 pass breakups, and that was the most in a game against Aaron Rodgers ever. I mean, he picked off Aaron Rodgers at home, which doesn't happen. He had 4 pass breakups against Aaron Rodgers, and he just looked phenomenal out there. And if that's not going out there to earn yourself a contract, then I don't know what is. Porter looked phenomenal out there. And this is not a knock on the other cornerbacks. Bryce Callahan played a good game. Kyle Fuller had a good game. But the Bears' game plan was they were going to bring help over on all the other receivers and then leave Porter out there on his own. And they went after Porter, and Porter was not there every time. I mean, he looked like a machine out there. If he could play like that every game, that dude would be the best cornerback in the NFL. Let's see. You know, you had some rotation with the outside linebackers, and that's something Vic Fangio's been doing as far as what he wants to do. Is he looks at the game plan of who he's playing against and who he thinks is going to do better, and then he looks at who has practiced better, who played better the game before, who is playing the best in the minutes that they're in there, and that's the guys he's going to ride for that game. And in this case, it was Willie Young got a lot of snaps, Lamar Houston got a lot of snaps, and those guys had meaningful snaps, and they were applying some pressure to Aaron Rodgers. You weren't getting a lot up the middle. That's still a weak point for the Bears, is your defensive tackles and your defensive ends. But the outside linebackers were actually getting some pressure to him. Again, you had no Antrell Roll, and you had Chris Brzezinski in there. And he had a better game than he has, but that guy is a liability out there with his missed tackles. It's a real struggle out there. And the Bears, that's going to be, I know I've said it so many times, and I'm going to keep saying it until I'm blue in the face, but the Bears need to upgrade the safety position because Antrell Roll hasn't played well. And Brzezinski he's just a guy that has played in the NFL. He's nothing special. He's actually fairly bad. You need to upgrade. Adrian Amos has played exceptionally well, especially considering where he was drafted and what he came in and did this early in his career. But that second spot has not been good. And finally, you figured out who your slot corner is with Bryce Callahan. You started off the season with Sherrick McManus, and he was bad. And Bryce Callahan, an undrafted rookie from Rice, comes in and plays really well. I mean, is he perfect? No. Would you love to upgrade over him? Oh, yeah. But in the meantime, he's somebody that you could definitely see having a future because he stepped in, and for the most part, he's played really well. What else do we have? The big screen past Eddie Lacy, that was another instance where the Bears' lack of linebacking speed came up and bit them. They're middle linebackers. They've played well. They've played above their heads, but you need a lot more speed at that middle linebacker, inside linebacker spot if you're gonna compete in the NFL and compete at a high level and get your defense up there. What else? You finally, that first game against the Packers, I don't think they touched Aaron Rodgers at all, and you got a couple sacks in on him and some knockdowns and some hits and flushing him out of the pocket, and you did a good job on that. The running game, Eddie Lacy and Starks, they picked up some yards, and it was shocking that they didn't go with them a little more. I think it was because the Bears, when they needed to, were able to hold them. There was that fourth down where the Packers went for it, and the Bears were able to stuff them on 2 straight runs from getting that first down. And I think that right there put it in the back of the Packers' mind that they can't just run and keep picking up the yards. Is they're going to actually have to move the ball by passing. What else? Listening to sports talk radio, you hear a lot of sports guys that are praising Przinski on his game, and I think they were basing it on the fact that he forced the Eddie Lacy fumble that Lamar Houston recovered. But really, overall through the game, he didn't play that exceptionally great. What else do we have? There's I heard a term that there's the Edgar Bennett Award when the Packers play the Bears, and it's basically what mediocre mid-tier running back is going to come and look like Jim Brown or Walter Payton against the Bears. And this week, I think it was James Starks. He came out and he was able to fill a lot of empty space in there and hit some good holes and against the Bears. But the Bears for once didn't give up huge chunks of yards to the Packers, and they were able to contain the run enough to force the game into Aaron Rodgers' hands and basically treating him like he's not Superman and going after the guy and challenging him, and it turned out that they won. The ultimate is coming down to the end is, Bears only up by 4, so the Packers got to score a touchdown to end the game, and on 2 consecutive drives where Aaron Rodgers is going down to score the game-winning touchdown, is the first one you intercept him. I mean, mind-numbing right there is that you're the Bears and you intercept Aaron Rodgers at home marching down the field for a game-winning drive, and then he gets the ball back because the Bears did some conservative play calling and didn't get the first down and kill the clock. And then you have Aaron Rodgers come down again. No, I take that back. Didn't the Bears go down and score? I think the Bears went down and scored. Oh no, I'm sorry. They put on that one. They went conservative in the play calling, and didn't even run a whole minute off the clock, which was really upsetting because that's something that all the fans and media have been criticizing the Bears coaching staff about. Is they on offense when they're in the lead and they're not being able to establish a long game-ending clock or clock-ending drive, and they're giving the other team another chance to win it. And that was the same case here. Is they didn't run a whole minute off the clock, end up punting. And then you have Packers come down the field to screen pass to Starks for a long drive. No pressure on Aaron Rodgers. Then you get the 19-yard catch by Cobb, where Callahan missed the tackle. That was a rookie mistake there. But then he comes around and forgets it and makes a nice pass breakup at the end of the game to win the game. You don't expect that if you're the Bears, is when it comes down to it, 2 game-winning drives, and you intercept Aaron Rodgers once, and on the last one, you get down to right by the end zone, where they've first and goal from the 8, and 4 straight times the Bears stopped them from scoring. And that's got to be a huge momentum boost for the Bears. And it sucks that right now that, their record is 5-6 because, there's 5 games left in the season. And granted, they're 5 winnable games, but they got 5 games left in the season, and they're basically going to have to win all 5 in order to consider the possibility of making the playoffs. So right now, if we're looking at the wild card, it's Packers would be one of the wild cards, and the Falcons would be the other. And then the Buccaneers, Seahawks, and Bears are all right behind them at 5-6. So I guess it's not as bad as, it's going to be tough to catch the Packers or the Vikings. So it's basically going to have to be that last wild card spot. But right now, the Falcons have it at 6-4, and they're fading fast. The Buccaneers, you play the Buccaneers, so you could, if you beat them, you've got the game up on them, and you've got the tiebreaker against them. You've already lost to the Seahawks, who are ahead of you, and the Falcons, like I said, are fading fast. So really, it's a competition between, let's see who else. The Redskins are right behind them. The Rams are right behind them. But the Rams, again, lost to the Bears. The Redskins play the Bears, so if the Bears can beat them head on, that gives them another game advantage and the ability to have the tiebreaker. The Saints are right behind them, but they've got the worst defense in the NFL. The Lions are right behind them, but I don't see the Lions continuing this winning streak. The Eagles are behind them, but they're playing so bad. So really, the Bears finish the season. They get the 49ers this coming week. And 49ers are 3-7 right now. It's at home. You feel like you should win that. Then you get the Redskins at home. Redskins are 4-6. They're playing well. Feel like that's a winnable game. And then you go 2 more on the road at the Vikings, who you should have beat that first game. And then at the Buccaneers. And then you finish the season at home against the Lions. There's only one winning record in that whole bunch, and that's the Vikings. So realistically, let's look at the teams ahead of them. The Falcons have the Vikings left. That's a tough game for them. The Buccaneers. Then they get the Panthers twice. They get the Panthers twice. So I don't see them beating the Panthers either time. They got to play the Saints, which it's a tough matchup for them. The Buccaneers is a tough matchup. Vikings are a tough matchup. The Falcons can realistically not win another one for the rest of the season. I don't think the Bears will catch the Packers because they've got the Lions, the Cowboys, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Vikings. They should be able to win most of those. How about the Buccaneers? The Buccaneers have the Colts, which I think is going to be a tough game for them. Falcons, they should win. Saints, they should win. Rams, they should win. I don't think they'll beat the Bears. And then I think they lose to the Panthers. So again, the Bears catch up right there. I think it's the Seahawks is the one that the Bears, it's going to be a tough time catching. But they've got the Steelers, the Vikings, the Ravens, the Browns, the Rams, and the Cardinals. It's a much tougher schedule than the Bears have. It's a tough road ahead of them. I think 9-7 actually gets you into the playoffs for the wild card. But that means the Bears have to go 4-1 in their last 5 games, and that's a tough road to do in the NFL. Really tough to do. But we'll just look at it one game at a time. We got the 49ers next. If they win against the 49ers, we reevaluate and see where we're at. And I guess that's going to do it for the Bears. And I had a question, was not related to the Bears per se, but I got a question that asked, what's the difference between franchise tagging somebody in the NFL and signing to a long-term deal? And the long-term deal is pretty self-explanatory. Is you're signing a player to a multi-year deal where you give them some signing bonus, which is a guaranteed part of the contract. And the way the salary cap works is you prorate the signing bonus over the life of the contract. So let's say they sign him to a 5-year, $10 million contract with $5 million guaranteed. So that means of the $10 million total of the contract, $5 million is guaranteed, $5 million is based on per year. And say it's split up evenly. So they get $1 million a year as salary. And then per the salary cap is you're breaking up that $5 million bonus over 5 years. So it's a $2 million a year cap hit. Well, let's do a little more complex is say it's 5-year, $20 million contract with 15 guaranteed. So that way you can do it this way is you could put the salary as $1 million the first year and then kind of break it up so you're paying less in the final or more in the final years. And so it's a way to manipulate the salary cap is the player gets the same amount of money. And with the salary cap, with the signing bonus, you get that whole lump sum guaranteed that you're going to get, but it's when it counts towards the salary cap, and that's the important thing for the team. Is a $5 million player isn't the same as another $5 million player because it depends on how their salary or their structures worked for their contract. If it's all guaranteed, if it's none of it's guaranteed. If you're able to prorate it all affects the salary cap differently. But the franchise tag, what it is it's an option from this collective bargaining agreement where the team can designate a player as their franchise player. They can't sign with another team. Well, they can, but there's a heavy compensation. I believe it's 2 first-round draft picks if you sign a player. But if you designated a player as franchise tag, is you sign them, and they get paid a guaranteed amount that's average of top 5 players' salary, the top 5 salaries at the position that player plays. So it's a 1-year deal, and players don't typically like it because players want to get the long-term deal because it's a lot more security for them because the signing bonus is all guaranteed. So if you sign a $50 million contract with $20 million guaranteed, is if you blow both of your knees out and never play football again, $20 million of that is guaranteed, even if you don't ever play another down. If the franchise tag is if you blow your knees out in that season, you get that money that you were paid that season, but that's it. You're done. No more money because nobody's going to sign you to a contract. So hopefully that answers your question, and if it does not, please feel free to hit me up and I'll further clarify. And that gets us to a point is if you're new to this show, this is a by the fans for the fans show. You look at some shows on some of the popular sports radio stations, and they absolutely hate their fans. They make fun of them constantly. Even the ones that seem like they're nice, they absolutely hate their fans. Some of them more than others. This is a by the fans for the fans show. If you're listening, I like you. Even if you don't agree with what I have to say or you say contradictory things, I don't care. This is all sports talk. This is opinion. If you have an opinion you want on, you can hit me up at Twitter at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Hit me up on any of those, and I will talk about your comment on the air. If you have a question, I'll answer it. Hell, if you want to be on the show and talk about your point, let me know. We'll set it up. I've had a couple people where they've made points, and I've asked them if they wanted to be on, and they said they were shy, so they didn't want to do it, and that's fine. If you just like listening, but if you want to be on the air, this is open. I'm just the guy with the microphone. So let's switch over to the Blackhawks and talk about them a little bit. The last we talked about them, they were really struggling, trying to figure out their identity and figure out who they are, and they had some games where they were firing away on offense, but were struggling mightily on defense. And then you have games where they're struggling on offense and playing fine defense and fine goaltending. It's really been a struggle to figure out where this team is at. And part of it is they've had a lot of injuries. Hossa was out for a while, and Duncan Keith was out, and you've had a lot of injuries. And you've also had a big turnover from last year where there was a significant player turnover on some of your top players. So you've got a lot of new guys that are trying to gel together, a lot of new pairings, a lot of defensive pairings, and a lot of new lines. That takes time to build up. Another thing is you've got the fatigue. Is when you win a Stanley Cup, you played a lot of hockey. You played like another half season of hockey after the regular season, which is already long. So you've got a fatigued team. They're just tired. That's a factor. And then finally is when you're a team like the Blackhawks and you've won so much, you've won 3 cups in the last 6-7 years, is you end up with like a regular season syndrome where you don't get up for the regular season. You sort of just it's something you have to do in order to get to the playoffs. When a lot of teams, they're fighting and playing hard because they need to get to the playoffs, and the Blackhawks look at it as, well, we're going to make the playoffs. Let's focus on the playoffs and get there. And it's really hard to look past sometimes. And I, watching them play, you don't, consciously they're not doing it, but it's something that always slips into the mind, and you see that a lot in teams that have been doing well consistently for a long time, is they don't put their best foot forward until the playoffs. And I don't know if it's any one of those things or if it's a combination of all those things or some of those things, but the Blackhawks have just been, inconsistent the whole season. And they've really struggled to figure out who their lines are going to be. And you finally got to the point last night where Coach Q has just really split it up and done a lot of crazy things with the lines. For the first time in a long time, Jonathan Toews was not on the first line. The first line was actually the Panarin, Anisimov, Kane line, and that line is just unstoppable. Patrick Kane just broke the North American player point streak. I think he's in 19 straight games with a point, which is unbelievable. This guy, people were coming into the season with the whole the rape allegation is, should this guy even play? Is this guy in the right state of mind? And he clearly focused on hockey and focused on nothing else because he's just been, the absolute MVP caliber guy. He's just playing so well. And that it's nice to finally see a center that can actually skate with him. Last year you had Brad Richards, who was the best you've seen in a while, being able to skate with him. But he's still an old man. Is you get Artem Anisimov, who is just phenomenal playing with Patrick Kane. That whole line has just looked great. You've got Panarin, Anisimov, Kane was their first line. The second line last night was Shaw, Taves, and Garbett. Your third line was Teuvo Teravainen, who just came back from an injury, Marcus Kruger, and Marian Hossa. And your fourth line was Desjardins, Caro, and Mashinter. And again, these are just, really splitting up the lines. Is, you typically see Jonathan Toews and Marian Hossa as fixtures on that first line, and now you've got Hossa playing on the third line. It's trying. The Blackhawks have been a team that's been, their offense has been going through that second line, which was the Panarin and Anisimov Kane line, and that's been their standard, their go-to as far as offense. They've generated so much of their offense, a lot of their pressures, and the Jonathan Toews lines has struggled, and they started to pick it up a little bit, but those third and fourth lines haven't done anything. You've been getting a goose egg from those lines. And finally now you have Coach Q that's just fed up with it a little bit, and he's getting he shifts that Kane line to the first line so they can get the most ice time. Puts Jonathan Taves with some other people to see if he can generate some offense. Moves Marian Hossa to the third line, and then he's just shuffling players from Rockford to Chicago to try to fill out that fourth line. His Mashinter was down, and then he was up and down and up. Same with Caro. Same with Marco Dano. These are guys that have gone up and down and up and down, trying to figure out who it is that's going to be able to play on that fourth line. And hopefully, you start to figure out who you have. The defensive pairings have been pretty consistent for the last couple weeks. You've got Duncan Keith, Nick Chalmerson is your top pairing. TVR Seabrook is the second pairing, and then Trevor Daley, Michael Rosefall is your your not so good package. Your first team power unit, our power play unit, is you put that Kane line up there, and the Taves line is the set Kane or Taves, Shaw, and Hossa are your second power play unit. It's a lot of things that are switched up with the Blackhawks, and it seems like it's starting to work out. The Hawks are coming back from this circus trip, and I think they got one more game. I might take that back. What's today, the 29th? So last night was the last game for their circus trip, and they wound up with a 3-2 overtime loss to the Kings, and they finally come back home against the Minnesota Wild on the 1st, December 1st. But it started off not so good for the Blackhawks on that road trip. And you got an overtime win against Edmonton, but then you lost to Calgary, and then a crushing loss to the Vancouver Canucks. But you end up taking 8 out of 12 points from that road trip, which is nice because the last few years is the Blackhawks have been able to use that as a springboard for the rest of the season. Is that circus trip? Guys. Typically on a long road trip is, you'd have your players not playing well. They get fatigued. You come back just trying to get a 500 record. But the Blackhawks use it as a relaxation. The guys look forward to it. Because they get a few days off between, so they're not going to fly back home. They're going to stay out west. They go to places like Las Vegas, and they do a lot of team bonding things, a lot of relaxing things. They play some golf because the weather's warmer, and you really get a rejuvenated Blackhawks, and they start to bond and figure things out. And that's been what you've seen from Coach Q in his tenure with this circus trip, and since Coach Q's been here, they've never finished less than 500 on that road trip, and here you have 8 out of 12 points, which that's a good sign. And I got a question in that asks why I keep calling it the circus trip and why other people call it the circus trip. And it was funny because years ago I wondered the same question. I think there's actually a famous quote where Joakim Noah asked why they call it the circus trip too, and it's actually because of the circus town. The Ringling Brothers Circus sets up at. They do the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, and then they set up after that. They go to the United Center, and they do like a 2-week run there. And so the Bulls and the Blackhawks have to play on the road for those 2 weeks because the circus is in town. So it's just been dubbed the circus trip because they have to go out of town for 2 weeks while the circus is in town. And typically the schedule makers like to put them on the West Coast because they've got to play all those teams on the West Coast. And this way they can bang them all out of the way and not have to worry so much about travel and things like that. Because, you get a lot of fatigue traveling back and forth between coasts and, Chicago to the coasts. This way you can get all those West Coast teams out of the way and really focus then on shorter trips later on. So it's good for the schedule makers in a way. But yeah, so the Blackhawks are starting to come back home. They've got one against the Wild, and then they head back to Ottawa on the 3rd, and then they have a big long homestand. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of their next 9 games are at home. So you get a nice long homestand after the road streak that should hopefully pad the Blackhawks lead. And as it stands right now, if you're looking at the standings, if the playoffs were to start today, The Blackhawks are the 4 seed, and they would be playing San Jose in the first round, which, is a tough matchup, but they had that nice comeback win from San Jose that really helps, make this circus trip of real victory. As they were down 2-0, and Blackhawks scored 2 goals late in the game, in the last minute 40, to tie it up and bring it to overtime, and then scored as a heartbreaker to San Jose. And that's, anytime that happens, it's always got to be a big blow to your team. You could say you go past it, and you could say you've moved on, and you can say all those things, but anytime you go and face that team, or you get in that situation again, it's got to sit in the back of your mind that, you start pressing to make those things not happen again, to not give up goals, and that's when things happen. You start pressing. But we're still early in the season. It's an 82-game season. We're 24 games into it, so we're, like a third of the way into this, a little less than a third of the way to the season, and the Blackhawks are looking healthy. They're 13-8-3, 29 points, 9 games out of first place in the whole conference, and 4 points out of the last wild card spot. So they're right in the middle of the hunt right there, and they're finally starting to play well. You take out some of those tough losses that they've had, and you see where they're playing now, and the things are looking good for the Blackhawks. Looking forward, I feel like the Blackhawks are going to shift back at some point with, the Hossa Taves line being their first line, and then moving Kane line back to second line. But hopefully they start to figure out what it is they're going to do with those third and fourth lines, because that's going to dominate. It seems like Coach Q is comfortable with his defensive pairings now. That Kane line is set. He knows what he has in Taves and Hossa. He's not worried about them. It's those third and fourth lines, and I look in the next couple weeks to keep shuffling until he figures out people he likes, and then I feel like he's going to stick with those lines, because you've got to develop camaraderie. You got to develop that chemistry in those lines to be able to get some points out of them. You can't just keep switching around and hoping for good results. You've eventually got to stick with somebody and then ride them out. And I think that's what's going to happen is in the next 2-3 weeks, you're going to have a steady dose of who it is that's going to be on those bottom 2 lines. And I think he's starting to get there. Even though Desjardins had a rough season so far, he's very comfortable with him because he's a veteran. Tanner Caro has earned his way to be playing there. Marcus Kruger's burned his way. Teuvo Teravainen, he's there. Shaw, Garbett, they've all earned their way onto this roster. It's going to be, who plays with who, and whether it's Brandon Mashinter or Marco Dano or whoever it's going to be is going to be that last spot. So we'll see. And that's really it for the Blackhawks. Looking forward is, it's never easy in the NHL, but they get the Ottawa Senators, the Winnipeg Jets, Nashville Predators, do all back-to-back games, and then those are teams that they've historically done pretty well against. The key matchup I want to see again is the revenge game on December 13th with the Canucks versus the Blackhawks, where it's in Chicago. The Blackhawks aren't going to forget what happened to them in Vancouver, and I think the Blackhawks are really going to come out. And at that point, if the Blackhawks don't respond and play really well and get a hard-fought victory out of Vancouver Canucks, I'll be shocked. And that's really going to do it for the Blackhawks. I don't think I have anything else to say about them. And then finally, I'm going to quickly talk about the Bulls, because I don't have too much to say about them. They're in a similar predicament as the Blackhawks. They're a team that is still struggling to figure out who they are. They've been under so many years under Coach Thibodeau, where it's been grind, defense, grind, do your job. And now you're going with Fred Hoiberg, who's a much more laissez-faire coach. He's trying to instill this new offense, and it seems like the Bulls are having a hard time picking up this new offense while still maintaining a team defense. And it's really been frustrating, especially considering that and my friends at Chris and Big Dave, they'll probably argue with me and yell and scream at me, but this team is really, really, really missing Mike Dunleavy. Mike Dunleavy has been a big cog for this team. If you look at it, he's able to play. I mean, granted, it took him years to be able to play a good team defense, but he's a fairly good defender for the type of position he plays. And you've been trying to fill the hole in the lineup that he's missing with Doug McDermott and Tony Snell. And the problem is Tony Snell has no idea what offensive basketball is. I mean, he's awful at it, and he's supposed to be your defender, but his defense hasn't been very good lately. He hasn't looked good on defense. So what's the point of giving Tony Snell minutes, because he brings you no offense and he's not playing very good defense. Doug McDermott, on the other hand, is 5th in the NBA in three-point shooting percentage. 5th in the NBA. That's awesome. Except that when you look, he's 54th in shots. So he's not taking a lot of shots, but when he is, he's hitting them. But he provides you no defense at all. I mean, he's just like a speed bump out there, if anything. And that's part of the problem is, you've got Derrick Rose with his double vision or whatever's wrong with him. Paul Gasol is not trying to run up and down the court that much. Nikolai Mirotic can't play defense at all. Doug McDermott can't play defense. You can't find any minutes for Bobby Portis. Tony Snell is just worthless out there. Jimmy Butler is earning his money, and Jimmy Butler's playing great. But if you're the Bulls, you've got to figure out how to establish this offense, and it's a quick offense. And Fred Hoiberg is just trying to instill in these guys that it's okay to shoot early, and you have them trying to set up an offense, and that's not the offense that Fred Hoiberg's trying to instill, and where it's a methodical offense that takes up the whole shot clock like they used to do with Thibodeau, and that's not what they're trying to do. And it's been a learning curve for them, and they're having a hard time figuring it out. And defensive wise, it's some games they play some pretty good team defense. They played good defense against the Portland Trailblazers, but then you have against Indiana Pacers, and they look like crap. And it's sad is because you want them against the Pacers. You were hoping that the Bulls would watch the Pacers and hopefully watch the tape of that game and see against the Pacers is what the Bulls should be striving to be. Is make sure is funnel that offense through, play some tough defense, and the Pacers are what the ideal of what the Bulls should be trying to do, and I think that's a fair consideration. And right now we're looking at the Bulls, and again, we're still in the first month of the season, so I'm not gonna be too crazy with where they are and where we expect them to be, but they need to start figuring that out soon. I mean, it's an 82 game schedule, and right now the Bulls have played 14 games. They're 14 games into an 82 game schedule, and that's still really early. I think what you want to do is you want to give them about 25 to 30 games, and at that point reevaluate where they are. And by that point, you expect Mike Dunleavy to be back, and I think that's going to be a huge move forward into figuring out their offensive system, because I think Mike Dunleavy is going to be a huge cog that makes that offense go. And you also have to figure out what you're going to do with Derrick Rose. I mean, those vision problems that he's having, or whatever issue he's having, is scared of his vision, whatever the case may be, the offense lives and dies by Derrick Rose. And if Derrick Rose is not playing, or he's playing and I'm going to quote him, he's playing like shit, then you're going to have the Bulls really struggling, and they're not going to be able to go anywhere. They're in a tough division right now. I mean, they've got the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are the class of, they're a team you expect in the NBA Finals because of LeBron. Indiana's a team that just has your number, and they play so tough and physical. Detroit's been an up-and-coming team. They're 8-8 right now. They're 500. And Milwaukee's a really talented team that's struggling a little bit to figure out who they are as well. But they're a talented team, and they made the playoffs last year. So your division is not a cakewalk division. And, if you're the Bulls, you've got to figure it out. And you're 14 games in right now, so you need to figure this out in the next 10 to 15 games of what you're going to do, because you don't want to be in the position of finishing towards the bottom of the wild card standings and having to play several series in the playoffs on the road. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a team that's, they're going to make the playoffs. The Eastern Conference is not that good. Come the end of the season, Boston's not that good. The Knicks aren't very good. Washington's not very good. If you're the Bulls, you figure that you'll probably be a top, 5 seed, definitely. So you want to make sure you're able to keep that, so you can get at least a top 4, so you can get a first round playoff series, and hopefully parlay that into getting further in the playoffs. But like I said, this Bulls team has really struggled. They can't figure out who their guys are that they need on offense. They're really struggling to switch it up a little bit of when their big package and their small package should be in. You have Gasol a little bit firing back at Coach Hoiberg for not having the right substitutions in against the team, and really the players are clawing back at him a little bit. And it's funny because they got sick of having the Thibodeau system where, they had to practice like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. They had to play every game like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And it was team defense, team defense, team defense. And now you've got Hoiberg, who's a much more laid-back coach, much more player-friendly, and they're trying to instill a nice offense which should... this is not a good team defense team. There's not a lot of great defenders. Snell should be. Jimmy Butler is. Joakim Noah is. But everybody else is an average to poor defender. So, you think that the playing to an offensive scheme would be playing to their strengths, and it seems like the Bulls are resisting that a little bit. So it's there's still a long, long way to go. I mean, we got like almost 70 games left to play in the NBA. So it's nothing to get panicked about. And we'll see. We'll continue to watch where they go. But look forward to when Dunleavy comes back. And I really expect the Bulls to get a surge from that and start to play better and figure out who they are. Because at that point, it makes Hoiberg's job much easier. Because right now he's struggling to, does he start McDermott and have the defensive liability, or does he start Snell and pray that he plays defense because he can't play offense? When you put Dunleavy in, what you can do is you've got a starter, and when you want to rest him, you sub in the guy that you need. If you need an offensive boost, you put in McDermott. If you need a defensive boost, you put in Snell. It's much easier rotation to do when you don't have to pick one to be the starter. Is Dunleavy your starter? He's clearly your starter. And that makes it a lot easier for the Bulls, and hopefully, provides a boost. The other thing with the Bulls is I really think they need to make a trade, because they need to find minutes for Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is the future, and you need to move somebody to make room for him. And I think the odd men out are Joakim Noah and Taj Gibson. And I think you need to get rid of one of those guys in order to get minutes and room for Bobby Portis. And I think if you're the Bulls, you've got to act now before somebody gets injured, before teams find somebody internally to fill those spots, or somebody else makes a trade. That's what you got to do. I think really that's the key to the Bulls' future of whether or not they're going to be able to compete with the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference. And that's really going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk. Now I'm starting to swallow my own words, so it's really time. But thanks so much for listening to this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I really appreciate you guys listening. Make sure you're hitting subscribe on however it is that you listen, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. Tell your friends, share it on social media. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.